Hi. It's time for story time, and I would like to read today a short story from a very inspiring woman. Her name is Anais Nin, and she was a writer back in like the 1920s and 30s, and she was born in 1903. She came from Cuban parents, but she was born in France, so she was Cuban French, and or French Cuban, and she was a writer and an erotica writer back in the basically the 20s. So the time in Paris of like the flapper time. So all sorts of like sexual experimentation was going on, and she was very curious about experiencing sexuality and really feeling it in her body and writing erotica from a very feminine perspective. And so she wrote Little Birds, Delta Venus, and then also Henry and June. And there's a really great movie that inspired me from years ago. I think it was from 1986. And it told the story about her love affair with Henry Miller, and June was his wife, and then Anais was also married. And so, in the end, she passed away in 1977, and apparently she had two husbands. One, they didn't really know about each other. One was in America and one was in France. Anyway, she was a real rebel, and she was, very like curious about her own sexuality. So today I'm going to read a short story from her collection of short stories in this book, Little Birds, which I've owned this for years. And this particular story is called the Maja. It's Spanish, so I think it's the Maya. And so forgive me if I don't pronounce certain words properly, but I'm going to do my best. So enjoy. The painter Novalis was newly married to Maria, a Spanish woman with whom he had fallen in love because she resembled the painting he most loved, the Maya Desnuda by Goya. They went to live in Rome. Maria clapped her hands in childish joy when she saw the bedroom, admiring the sumptuous Venetian furniture with its wonderful inlaid pearl and ebony. That first night, Maria, lying on the monumental bed made for the wife of a doge, trembled with delight, stretching her limbs before she hid them under the fine sheets. The pink toes of her plump little feet moved as if they were calling Novalis. But not once had she shown herself completely nude to her husband. First of all, she was Spanish, then Catholic, then thoroughly bourgeois. Before lovemaking, the light had to be put out. Standing beside the bed, Novalis looked at her with his brows contracted, dominated by a desire that he hesitated to express. He wanted to see her, to admire her. He did not fully know her yet, despite those nights in the hotel when they could hear strange voices on the other side of the thin walls. What he asked was not the caprice of a lover, but the desire of a painter, of an artist. His eyes were hungry for her beauty. Maria resisted, blushing, a trifle angry, her deepest prejudices offended. "Don't be foolish, Novalis, dearest," she said. "Come to bed." But he persisted. She must overcome her bourgeois scruples, he said. Art scoffed at such modesty. Human beauty was meant to be shown in all its majesty, and not to be kept hidden, despised. His hands, restrained by the fear of hurting her, gently pulled her weak arms, which were crossed on her breast. She laughed. "You silly thing! You're tickling me! You're hurting me!" But little by little, her feminine pride flattered by this worship of her body, she gave in to him, allowed herself to be treated like a child with soft remonstrances, as if she were undergoing a pleasant torture. Her body, freed from veils, shone with a whiteness of pearl. Maria closed her eyes as if she wanted to flee from the shame of her nakedness. On the smooth sheet, her graceful form intoxicated the eyes of the artist. "You are Goya's fascinating little Maja," he said. In the weeks that followed, she would neither pose for him nor allow him to use models. She would appear unexpectedly in his studio and chat with him while he painted. One afternoon, when she came suddenly into the studio, she saw on the model's platform a naked woman lying in some furs, showing the curves of her ivory back. Later, Maria made a scene. Novalis begged her to pose for him. She capitulated. Tired out by the heat, she fell asleep. He worked for 3 hours without a pause. With frank immodesty, she admired herself in the canvas just as she did in the great mirror in the bedroom. Dazzled by the beauty of her own body, she momentarily lost her self-consciousness. Also, Novalis had painted a different face on her body so that no one would recognize her. But afterwards, Maria fell again into her old habits of thinking, refused to pose. She made a scene each time Novalis engaged a model, watching and listening behind doors and quarreling constantly. She became quite ill with anxiety and morbid fears and developed insomnia. The doctor gave her pills which sent her off into a deep sleep. Novalis noticed that when she took these pills, she did not hear him get up, move about, or even spill objects in the room. One morning he awakened early with the intention of working and watched her sleep so deeply that she rarely stirred at all. A strange idea occurred to him. He drew back the sheets that covered her and slowly began to lift up her silk nightgown. He was able to raise it above her breasts without her giving any sign of awakening. Now her whole body lay exposed, and he could contemplate it as long as he wanted. Her arms were flung outwards, her breasts lay under his eyes like an offering. He was roused with desire for her, but still did not dare touch her. Instead, he brought his drawing paper and pencils, sat at her side and sketched her. As he worked, he had the feeling that he was caressing each perfect line in her body. He was able to continue for 2 hours. When he observed the effect of the sleeping pills beginning to wear off, he pulled down the nightgown, covered her with a sheet, and left the room. Later, Maria was surprised to notice a new enthusiasm for work in her husband. He locked himself in his studio for whole days, painting from the pencil sketches he made in the mornings. In this way, he completed several paintings of her, always reclining, always asleep, as she had been the first day she posed. Maria was amazed by this obsession. She thought it was merely a repetition of the first pose. He always altered the face. Since her actual expression was forbidding and severe, no one who saw these paintings ever imagined that the voluptuous body was that of Maria. Novalis no longer desired his wife when she was awake, with her puritanical expression and stern eyes. He desired her when she was asleep, abandoned, rich, and soft. He painted her without respite. When he was alone with a new painting in his studio, he lay on the couch in front of it, and then a warmth ran through his whole body as his eyes rested on the Maja's breasts, on the valley of her belly, on the hair between her legs. He began to feel an erection stirring. He was surprised at the violent effect of the painting. One morning he stood in front of Maria as she lay sleeping. He had succeeded in parting her legs slightly so as to see the line between them. Watching her unconstrained pose, her opened legs, He fingered his sex with the illusion that she was doing it. How often he had led her hand to his penis, trying to obtain this caress from her, but she was always repulsed and moved her hand away. Now he enclosed his penis fully in his own strong hand. Maria soon realized that she had lost his love. She did not know how to win it back. She became aware that he was in love with her body only as he painted it. She went to the country to stay with friends for a week, but after a few days she fell ill and returned home to see her doctor. When she arrived at the house, it looked uninhabited. She tiptoed to Novelis's studio. There was no sound. Then she began to imagine that he was making love to a woman. She approached the door. Slowly and noiselessly, like a thief, she opened it, and this is what she saw. On the floor of the studio, a painting of herself, and lying over it, rubbing himself against it, her husband, naked, with his hair wild, as she had never seen him, his penis erect. He moved against the painting lasciviously, kissing it, fondling it between the legs. He lay against it as he never had against her. He seemed driven into a frenzy, and all around him were the other paintings of her, nude, voluptuous, beautiful. He threw a passionate glance at them and continued his imaginary embrace. It was an orgy with her he was having, with a wife he had not known in reality. At the sight of this, Maria's own controlled sensuality flared up, free for the first time. When she took off her clothes, she revealed a Maria new to him, a Maria illumined with passion, abandoned as in the paintings, offering her body shamelessly, without hesitation, to all his embraces, striving to efface the paintings from his emotions, to surpass them. The end. Stay tuned for more story time on my YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.